Well, hello, namaste, shalom, sat sri akal, salam, and just plain good evening to everybody. We're very excited about this panel. It is an event that we have planned as on the sidelines of what was a pretty historic week at the United States State Department in their first ever ministerial to advance religious freedom. This briefing is meant for U.S. lawmakers, government officials, NGOs, policy analysts, and experts, as well as those who may be novices to India and the subcontinent. As the most religiously diverse democracy in the world, with a long history of providing refuge to persecuted religious minorities across Asia, India is uniquely positioned to provide a civilizational perspective on pluralism for the modern world. HAF will also be officially releasing our new publication, which are on your chairs, India, Democracy in Diversity. And we have invited panelists from key religious minorities as well as experts on India to share their experiences on pluralism in India. To lead us off in the discussion while officially unveiling the report, India, Democracy and Diversity, we have our Managing Director, Samir, Kalra, and he will be now giving the presentation, so let's all welcome him.
Thank you very much, Jay. Namaste, good evening, everyone. I think Jay got all of the different religious, diverse greetings out of the way, so I won't go into all of those. But we're really grateful to have you here today, and what Jay has mentioned has been a really exciting week as the State Department has really launched into this Religious Freedom Initiative as the State Department ministerial events took place. And as part of that, we wanted to provide an opportunity to learn more about India. And as Jay mentioned, you all have in your seats our newest publication, India, Democracy and Diversity. And I think the real impetus for this report and this briefing has been to provide a different story, or the full story on India. Unfortunately, often in the media and US policy circles, you only hear one side of the story about India. It's often depicted as a place where religious freedom or human rights are violated on an ongoing basis, or minorities are systematically persecuted, and we wanted to provide a full story. Now, to be sure, India is by no means perfect, and there have been episodes of violence and interreligious conflict in India, including in 1984, 2002, and other more recent instances of violence. But those have been few and far between over India's long history as a civilization and as a modern nation state. And if we look at these issues that have taken place when there have been instances of interreligious conflict, the dynamics and the causes have been varied and have been disparate. And so you cannot say that it's only been one group that's been persecuting another group, or that it's been one group that has had interreligious conflict with others. The culprits have been varied whenever there has been conflict, and the victims have been varied as well. And such violence, however, is not the norm and is inconsistent with India's pluralistic ethos. That being said, we at HAF unequivocally condemn any and all violence committed in the name of religion in India. Violence of this kind contravenes Hindu teachings. There's also been quite a bit of discussion on certain laws in India, such as the Freedom of Religion Act, which have come under scrutiny as restricting the rights of minority religions, particularly Christians. These laws, however, were primarily formulated as a reaction to religious imperialism on a large scale, systematic and aggressive evangelical missions in India, and were intended to prevent vulnerable populations from being preyed upon and falling victim to predatory tactics seeking religious conversion in exchange for or with the allurement of medical and humanitarian aid, education, and employment. So these acts do not restrict proselytization, but instead are focused on just protecting vulnerable populations from conversions by forcible or fraudulent means or by allurement or inducement. And these laws have not been consistently enforced and have resulted in few arrests and no convictions. So if we look at India from a larger perspective, it's often depicted as a Hindu-majority country, and only as that. Now, while it is true that it is a Hindu-majority country, it is also the birthplace of three other major world religions: Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. These four religions are collectively referred to as the Dharma traditions, since they share many concepts such as dharma, karma, samsara, and moksha, though each religion understands and interprets each of these concepts differently. But beyond these religions that have given birth in India, India is home to Muslims, Christians, Zoroastrians, and the Jewish community, and has been home to them for well over 1,000 years. In fact, some Jewish communities trace their roots in India to over 2,500 years ago, while Zoroastrians arrived more than 1,300 years ago to escape persecution. In fact, India has a long history as a refuge for persecuted religious communities, which has continued into modern times. For instance, Tibetan Buddhists and His Holiness the Dalai Lama fled to India after escaping Chinese occupation, and the Tibetan government in exile is in the northern city of Dharamshala. And more recently, Rohingya and Afghan Muslims have even found refuge in India. Moreover, unlike other countries in the neighborhood, Ahmadiyya Muslims are free to worship, build mosques, and call themselves Muslims in India, unlike, as I mentioned, in other parts of the world, not just in the immediate neighborhood. And overall, these religious minorities comprise a significant percentage of India's 1.3 billion population. Muslims alone account for 14.4% of the population, or approximately 176 million people. And the Muslim population has grown at least 5% since 1951. Religious demography is even more complex at the state level. At the state level, minorities are either as a single group or collectively comprising majorities in 8 states. In Jammu and Kashmir, we see a Muslim majority, as well as in Lakshadweep. In Punjab, there's a Sikh majority. In Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Nagaland, we have a Christian majority. In Manipur, while you have Hindus and Christians comprising relatively equal populations, minorities collectively comprise a majority in that state. So India's diverse religious population is not only present in terms of at the societal level, but they have many legal and constitutional protections that ensures religious freedom for all citizens. In fact, India's secularism goes beyond baseline equality and provides unprecedented accommodations to its religious minority populaces through subsidies, special government programs, and even separate religion-based personal laws for Christians and Muslims. Minorities are represented at all levels of society and government in India, at the national and state government level, in the public and private sector, its state-run education institutions, military, and law enforcement. In fact, it's minorities that have made some of the greatest contributions to India, both historically and in the present day. So what are some of the key takeaways that we want you to walk away with here today from both this brief as well as this briefing at large? India has been, in fact, a multi-religious, multicultural society for thousands of years. It has a unique brand of secularism that accommodates religion and religious minorities in a variety of ways. And interreligious tension and violence is a reality, but it is occasional and not the predominant story of interreligious relations in India. And we're fortunate to have a panel today to discuss some of these issues in more depth.